he says, "You're not Volk. I'll show you there are different levels. Keep my belt clean." Do you have any response to Islam?
No, come get it. Come get it.
They said that Islam Makhachev would get the title shot up at 170 if you won this belt tonight. What do you think about that?
I think it's a beautiful challenge, you know, he's pound for pound #1. You get Makhachev next, right? In Perth? Let's go. Cheers, Dana. Thanks, Hunter. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Legends. Cheers, guys. Save the welterweight division. Yeah.
A man of few words, but I tell you what, that was an incredible fight tonight. And he'll take on Islam Makhachev. He doesn't care. He wants to be a part of the biggest fights possible. Islam Makhachev versus Della Maddalena. That's the fight that's going to happen.
Della Maddalena has defeated Belal Muhammad to become the new welterweight champion, making things easier for Islam Makhachev to move up and fight for a second belt. Islam Makhachev was waiting for the result of this fight to make a decision about his move, as he didn't want to fight his friend Belal Muhammad. And after Della Maddalena's win at UFC 315, Islam Makhachev expressed his excitement to become a double champion on his social media. Islam Makhachev wrote on his X account, "Time to become a double champion, inshallah, let's go." On the other hand, after his incredible win at UFC 315, Della Maddalena acknowledged that Islam Makhachev is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters. He mentioned that it would be a pleasure for him to take on Islam, and if he wins, become the pound-for-pound champion himself.
As champion now, the UFC says Islam Makhachev is next. What's your message for Islam?
I mean, he's one of the best pound for pound #1, so it'll be a pleasure to take him out and become pound for pound myself.
Della Maddalena acknowledged that there are many great challenges ahead, but if someone like Islam Makhachev wants to step up, he would deserve the shot. He recognized Islam as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters and mentioned that it would be a dream to face such a top fighter, especially for his first title defense.
The next big fight could be Islam Makhachev. You spoke about it briefly. Your early thoughts on that potential matchup, because now everybody's going to want to know what's next as you look forward.
I mean, obviously the welterweight has a lot of good challenges, but I think if someone like Islam wants to step up, you've got to give him the shot. You know, pound for pound, one of the best, and it would be a dream to fight one of the best pound for pound guys in the world with my first defense.
Della Maddalena believed that facing Islam Makhachev in Perth would make sense, especially considering the history between the fighters there. He mentioned that Islam had a great experience in Perth before and that the crowd went wild. Jack added that if he were to become the hometown hero and fight Islam, the atmosphere would be electric. When asked about his readiness to fight Islam in Perth, Jack confidently responded that he would be ready right now, saying, "Where is it? Let's go."
Do you think we're going to see that happen in Perth? Maybe get revenge for Volk in Perth?
I think it makes sense. You know, there's a bit of history in Perth. I know Makhachev, I think he had a good time in Perth last time, so why not? Let's do it again. I think the Perth crowd went absolutely crazy last time, and I think they would blow the roof off if there was a hometown boy being the champ.
Hometown boy up against Islam. How does the body feel? Do you think you'd be ready to go if it comes to you facing Islam in Perth?
Yeah, I'd be ready to go right now. Where is he?
Let's go, let's go.
Della Maddalena showed his interest in fighting Islam to get revenge for his countryman Alexander Volkanovski. He said that fighting Islam would be a beautiful challenge. He respects that Islam is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter and added that he wants to get revenge for Volkanovski.
If you won this belt tonight, what do you think about that?
I think it's a beautiful challenge, you know, he's pound for pound #1.
Islam Makhachev reacted to Della Maddalena's comments by dismissing any comparisons to Volkanovski. He made it clear that Jack isn't on the same level and warned that he would prove the gap in skill if they fought. Islam also hinted that Jack wouldn't be holding on to the title for long, telling him to keep it ready. Islam Makhachev said, "You are not Volk. I will show you a different level. Keep my belt clean." Della Maddalena also responded to this tweet from Islam and challenged him to come and get that belt.
Islam's already tweeted at you a few times, and like the most recent one, he says, "You're not Volk. I'll show you there are different levels. Keep my belt clean." Do you have any response to Islam?
No, come get it. Come get it.
Meanwhile, Joaquin Buckley criticized Islam Makhachev for showing support against Belal Muhammad, calling it out as hypocritical behavior. He expressed his disappointment by saying it's wrong to pray for the downfall of someone you consider a brother. Joaquin Buckley stated, "Crazy, praying for your so-called brother's downfall." Jack Della Maddalena also said that Islam is a good fighter. He believes that his performance in the previous fight can be a solid foundation for a potential fight with Islam. He also mentioned that his fight with Belal Muhammad could be a great practice match to prepare for Islam.
And I mean, thinking about an Islam fight, I mean, how much do you think you showed that maybe him and his team will kind of be worried about, and like how you were able to stop certain things with Belal in there? Do you think this is a great foundation for a fight like that?
Yeah, Islam's a good. I think it's a good practice match for Islam.
Jack Della Maddalena is happy after beating a champion and now has great confidence to face and beat the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He believes it would be a great accomplishment. However, he thinks it would just be the beginning of his journey. He emphasized that facing Islam would be a step in that process.
And I guess just last thing, what would it kind of say about you if you can go in a 2-fight span from not being the champion to beating Belal, who I think is, you know, up there in pound for pound, to beating the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world?
It's a pretty good, a good run, you know. But it's just the beginning. I think beating Islam would be just. Yeah, this is just the beginning.
On the other hand, after his loss at UFC 315, Belal Muhammad stayed positive, saying that he trusts in God's plan and is grateful for everything. He thanked his supporters and reminded everyone that he's faced setbacks before and will return stronger. Belal Muhammad said, "Allah's plan is the best plan, alhamdulillah, for everything. Thanks to all my supporters, I've been here before and I'll be back." However, MMA guru mocked Belal Muhammad after his loss at UFC 315, highlighting Belal's earlier statement where he claimed, "I've got hands like Canelo." He pointed out how Jack Della Maddalena truly dominated Belal, saying Jack Della Maddalena really beat the hell out of Belal Muhammad. Holy moly. He emphasized how Belal got stuck on his feet, struggling against JDM when he couldn't land his takedowns, which turned into a nightmare for him. MMA guru said, "I've got hands like Canelo. Jack Della Maddalena really beat TF out of Belal Muhammad. Holy moly. Bro got stuck on the feet in a nightmare with JDM when he couldn't get his takedowns." Meanwhile, Ian Machado Gary reacted to the news of Islam Makhachev possibly moving up to welterweight by acknowledging the current champion, Jack Della Maddalena. He praised Jack's performance, but also called it sloppy. Ian said that if Islam does move up to 170 pounds, everyone in the division would need to step back and give him the respect he's earned. However, if that fight doesn't happen, Ian made it clear he's ready to step in, take over the UFC, and go after the title himself. He confidently stated that he would dominate Jack in a fight and outbox him with ease.
You've got the new champion, Jack Della Maddalena, the Aussie, great performance, but sloppy. The rumour is Islam Makhachev is moving up to 170, and if he does, then all of us welterweights have to take a step back and give the man the respect he deserves. But if negotiations don't go so well, then you've got a tall, blonde Irishman who's ready to take over the UFC and get that belt, and I will smoke Jack Della Maddalena. I'll box the ears off him.
Earlier, Ian Machado Gary also spoke about Islam Makhachev, saying that if Islam steps up and claims he wants to be next in line, everyone in the welterweight division would have to take notice. He described Islam as a serious challenge for anyone, pointing out that Islam wouldn't have to cut weight and would still be big and strong. Ian emphasized that Islam is the perfect example of the new evolution of fighters, showing just how dangerous he can be.
And if that man turns up and says, "I want to be next," then I think everyone in the welterweight division goes, okay. He's an absolute disaster for everyone in the division if he comes up and doesn't have to cut weight. He'll still be big, he'll still be strong. He's the perfect example of the new evolution of fighters. Great everywhere.
UFC Hall of Famer Michael Bisping also praised Jack Della Maddalena, saying the night belonged to him. He described Jack as a quiet, respectful man and a great human being. Bisping highlighted Jack's incredible performance and said he's not afraid to take on big challenges. According to Bisping, Jack is ready to face Islam Makhachev, and that's the next big fight that's going to happen.
Tonight belongs to Jack Della Maddalena. He's an awesome human being. I've sat down with him several times and had some conversations. Nice guy, quiet guy, a man of few words. But I tell you what, that was an incredible fight tonight. And he'll take on Islam Makhachev. He doesn't care. He wants to be a part of the biggest fights possible. Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena. That's the fight that's going to happen.
Michael Bisping also reacts to the Belal versus JDM fight, saying the fight was a classic striker versus grappler matchup. He praised Jack Della Maddalena's sharp boxing, calling it slick and accurate, while noting that Belal's hands looked good but weren't enough. Bisping pointed out that Jack controlled the cage early, stopped most takedowns, and kept Belal on the back foot, which made the difference in the fight.
But let's talk about the fight. We knew it was the boxing versus the wrestling, and we know that Belal Muhammad talked about having great boxing like Canelo Alvarez. Well, I'll tell you what, tonight, the hands look better than ever. The problem was that Jack Della Maddalena is sensational. When it comes to boxing, he is beautiful. He was picking his shots. He was quick. He was slick. He was in. He was out. He was cutting angles. He was landing right hands at will. It was fantastic. But Belal Muhammad, he was right there the whole time. And if you look at the strike stats, Belal Muhammad wasn't far behind. The problem for Belal, though, was that Jack Della Maddalena, in the early part of the fight, was able to control the geography of the ring. He was able to put the wrestler on the back foot. And that's what you want to do if you have the ability to stop the takedowns, which he did almost every single time. The takedown defense was fantastic.
MMA analyst Luke Thomas also praised Jack Della Maddalena's striking and noted he was clearly the better fighter, though Belal Muhammad exceeded expectations. He pointed out JDM's defensive flaws and risky takedown attempts, warning that such mistakes against Islam Makhachev, who is known for his smart, mistake-free fighting, could cost him.
The striking prowess of JDM, if he could just have enough time to get it going, would be enough. I think Muhammad somewhat overperformed relative to expectations, but in the end, JDM was better. But the defensive lapses, to me, I know we have to focus on like how good JDM is as a striker, but what could have cost him here was the incompleteness of his defense. And to me, he took a quantum leap forward today in showing how good that was. Now, again, trying to turn that defense into offense by trying to go for some of those ill-advised takedowns, especially in the fifth, and then you're getting kind of lateral dropped for it. You do that against Islam, and I think that's a huge mistake. Islam just doesn't make a lot of mistakes, right? He doesn't necessarily have, at times, always the flashiest offense. I mean, he does have very good offense. We're talking about the pound-for-pound #1 guy in the sport. But what really defines him is that he makes very, very good decisions.
Luke Thomas shared his excitement about the idea of Islam Makhachev moving up to 170 pounds. While acknowledging that Islam versus Ilia Topuria might be the biggest possible fight in MMA, he emphasized that Islam at welterweight has the potential to be something truly special. He admitted it could also fall short, but highlighted the possibility of Islam becoming a double champion as a major opportunity and achievement.
Islam up at 170 to me is exciting. I know what everyone's going to say. Oh my God, the best fight you could have made in MMA was Ilia versus Islam. I'm not denying it. I'm not in any way asking you to feel differently about what was the best fight that could be made. But here's what I am trying to tell you. Islam up at 170 could be something really special. It could fizzle too, but I'm trying to point out the positives. It could be really special. For him to become a double champ could be a very big deal.
Luke Thomas explained that just because Islam Makhachev is likely to face Jack Della Maddalena next doesn't mean a future fight with Ilia Topuria is off the table. He said it's possible Islam could lose a close fight at welterweight and still return to lightweight for a matchup with Ilia. Luke emphasized that Islam moving to 170 is exciting and could offer fans something special, especially if he stays for multiple fights. He argued that Islam has earned the chance to chase double champ status, pointing out that he gave Volkanovski 2 opportunities, one on short notice and one in his home country, which showed Islam's willingness to take risks and compete at the highest level.
Just because you're going to get, it looks like, Makhachev and JDM next, doesn't mean you actually can't get Makhachev and Ilia at some point. It could be he goes up against JDM and maybe he doesn't get his ass kicked, but maybe he just kind of loses and you're like, oh, all right. Then you go back to 55 and you can see what's up after that. So it's not even a case that you can't get it. But my point is, Islam at 170, if he gives us 3 or maybe even 4 of those, is a treat as far as I'm concerned. Like him vying for double champ status, he's earned it. He gave Volkanovski 2 cracks. He accepted one of those on short notice, and I know it was like shorter notice for Volkanovski, but you know, nevertheless, accepting to fight Alexander Volkanovski on very, very short notice is still risky no matter who you are. And no matter how much prep, and he gave him both of those. He did one of those fights in Volkanovski's home country. He's earned it. He's earned it. He's absolutely earned it.
Islam Makhachev's coach, Javier Mendez, responded to whether Jack Della Maddalena is a tougher challenge than Ilia Topuria. He said it's hard to say for sure, but emphasized that Islam wants the fight with Jack. For Mendez, that's the challenge that matters most. He expressed full confidence in Islam's abilities, saying Islam's complete skill set and strong work ethic make him ready to dominate any opponent.
How do you feel about this version of JDM as a challenge for Islam? Do you feel like he's a harder challenge than an Ilia Topuria at lightweight?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say if he's a harder challenge. I just know Islam wants this one. So for me, that's the challenge I want, and it's the challenge that I know Islam's going to be, supreme over, because I just know his skill set. I know what he brings to the table, and he brings an incredible work ethic along with skill set in every area. So
Javier Mendez said that Islam Makhachev is a completely different level compared to anyone Jack Della Maddalena has faced before. If the fight happens, he expects it to be an exciting matchup where Islam will perform at an elite level. Mendez also noted that the jump to welterweight isn't too big for Islam. He'll be a solid-sized welterweight and won't be undersized in the division.
Islam is a whole different animal than the Jack's ever been involved with. So if that fight does materialize, we're going to see a hell of a fight, and you're going to see Islam perform at an absolute incredible level. And also, the weight is not super big for him either. So he's going to be a fairly decent welterweight. So Islam won't be a small guy. He'll be a decent welterweight if that fight materializes.
Javier Mendez shared that he hasn't seen Islam Makhachev fight at welterweight yet, but logically he believes Islam would have more energy and quicker recovery by cutting less weight. He pointed out that recovery time in Australia is only 24 hours, compared to the usual 36 hours in other locations, which could impact Islam's performance. Mendez mentioned that the shorter recovery period might not necessarily give Jack Della Maddalena an advantage, but it could make a difference for Islam, especially based on his experience with Alexander Volkanovski's fights.
I'm hoping, I haven't seen it, so I haven't seen him at welterweight, but I'm thinking, logically speaking, he has to cut less weight, and recovery time is a lot less too. So, but if it is in Australia, we'll need it, because in Australia, they only give you 24 hours to recover. Then it's not a 36 hours like everywhere else. So we'll only have 24-hour recovery. So if that's the case, it's fantastic. And I don't know if that's going to be an advantage because of that reason. But if it's anywhere else where it's the 36-hour plus, then it's a nice advantage for Islam to recover quicker. Not that it's a disadvantage or not an advantage for Jack. It's the same for Jack, but for us, it could make a difference, 24 hours versus 36 hours for recovery, because I know it was for Volk. It was a big difference.
Javier Mendez further stated that if Islam beats Jack Della Maddalena and wins the welterweight belt, and Ilia Topuria goes on to win the interim lightweight belt, it would make a potential super fight between Islam Makhachev and Ilia more logical. Mendez acknowledged that such a scenario would make everyone happy, provided the UFC agrees and everyone accepts the matchup. He noted that this would be the ideal situation.
I know that we spoke about how important takedowns are for Bilal, but Islam is one of the most well-rounded. We've spoken about this before. One of the most well-rounded pound-for-pound fighters that's ever fought in MMA. His striking has come a long way. Would you guys shy away from striking with Jack Della? And would you be looking for the takedown, or would you be happy to get in there and sort of let Islam trade with Jack, because obviously he's improved so much?
Well, remember, like I've always said, Islam is the type of fighter that he can change second per second, minute per minute, round for round.
So Jack Della Maddalena's victory at UFC 315 sets the stage for a potential showdown with Islam Makhachev, who is eyeing a move up to welterweight for a second belt. Both fighters have expressed interest in the matchup, with Makhachev eager to chase double champion status and Jack confident in his ability to challenge the top pound-for-pound fighter. With both fighters ready for the challenge, this potential clash could be a pivotal moment in the UFC's future.